Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Hey, Ted Coley.
Hey.
Me and Ted did a pre-show. We did about 5 or 10 minutes worth of pre-show. And it's ironic that you were wearing your Blasphemers shirt with gunshot holes in it. Yay! Yeah. Because we are going to be talking about guns and bullets today. Does that sound like lots of fun, Ted Coley? That sounds like no fun whatsoever. What is Beacon of Speech? We sell freedom of speech to everyone. Everyone. What did I miss? Oh, yeah. Oh, my outline. Blah, 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 blah. The problem is, free speech is under constant assault in America today. The problem is it's coming from two places that's very hard to fight. From the left in the form of PC madness, from the right in the form of corporatization. The concept that we're all in this together is lost in America. America is supposed to lead by example, not force its will onto other countries. See, I got my script back, right? What are the limits to free speech? Pure evil. Evil is debatable. Pure evil is absolute. Should I keep going? I haven't done the whole list in the whole time.
Why not?
Like it or not, a lot of the Constitution is based on vague Christian principles. There is a God, just unclear over which religious entities have the correct message. Why are we good nighttime listening? It's actually the day today. It's not nighttime listening. Beacons are not that effective during the daylight. See, we never get to the last line. You never know what the last line is. I know what the last line of Pepsi is. This week, here's what's going on with free speech and free guns. Now, we do not like guns at Beacon of Speech, right? We are not fans of guns. But we understand that the Second Amendment is very important in protecting the First Amendment. Okay, now, if you notice up here, we have t-shirts, we have musical stuff, we got NFL stuff, who is this? Who is this guy up here? We got Carlos Santana bobbleheads.
Who is no longer with the Indians, right?
That is correct. And we have the shirt from the movie. Notice, we do not have guns in our thing, because we are not huge gun fans. But
I had a squirt gun, but I don't know what happened to it.
But gun ownership is protected by the Second Amendment of the Constitution. And what happens when they take away the guns? The Chinese come marching down the street and they take over.
And in the Second Amendment, it says it shall not be infringed.
That is absolutely correct.
Infringed means not changed in any way. Is that more or less what infringed means?
Correct. Yes.
So it's just kind of funny.
So last week was the Parkland shooting. Is that correct, Parkland?
Yeah, it was, the 14th?
Yeah. So, and then we did a Beacon of Speech right after, and that Beacon of Speech went right down the toilet. We got glitched out of existence. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so we
talked
talked
some of our best work.
Some of our best work doesn't exist anymore, which is very sad. Aren't you saddened by it?
Yeah, I was, even though it was, only about a half hour?
It was only about a half an hour, and then it got glitched right out. But the point of my story is that after that happened, all of a sudden, we have to ban guns was really gaining traction, okay? And I keep trying to keep saying over and over and over again, you can't ban guns. Now, this week I did an article for Beacon of Speech, and I don't even remember the name of it. But basically, it compared guns to cigarettes, okay? Now, as bad as cigarettes, and we'll go over this, we'll hash it out a little bit. We talked a little bit before we started. As bad as guns are for you, right? It can kill you. Cigarettes will kill you too, right? Why not ban cigarettes? Well, they're trying to ban cigarettes. Cigarettes are harder and harder to come by, and this is what the article says. They're harder and harder to come by. They don't want to ban cigarettes because then they lose tax income. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether cigarettes are good or bad for you. They want, the compromise is, we are going to tax you to have cigarettes. But here's the rules, okay? Where in the Constitution does it say you are allowed, Ted Coley, you are allowed to smoke cigarettes? Where is that in the Constitution?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. So there is the difference between guns and cigarettes it says right in the Second Amendment, right to bear arms. It does not say right to smoke. Okay? So even cigarettes are legal, and they're restricting them. So when you say, like you said, the guns are not supposed to be restricted, and if you don't want guns, change the Constitution, right?
That's too hard.
That's too hard!
It's funny. It's like,
We have to have a constitutional convention.
What was it, like maybe the second or third beacon of speech? This is like deja vu.
Yeah, over and over again. There's more and more school shootings, but now this week there's all sorts of traction to ban the AR-15. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't even know the name of the gun, so I'm sorry. Just like I didn't know how much a pack of cigarettes were. I had to look it up. Right? But, so, let's just say they ban the AR-15, right? Next week there's another school shooting. They're like, oh, it didn't work. Well, now we gotta ban this next gun. And now you're eroding constitutional liberties. And what I keep hearing is, Fred, you don't understand. You weren't in a school shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I told you to read the article that the high school that I interned in 1997, it was my internship, and I interned at a high school. There was a school shooting at my high school in 1997. Not where I went, where I was the intern. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I write the article, but I came in, I made Ted read the stupid thing.
And you said that was in September.
September 11th of 1997. And again, what was the opening line? It was before Sandy Hook, before Parkland, before Columbine. There was LeSueur Henderson High School. You could look it up yourself, right? And I told Ted some of the story about the kid who came in and said, I'm going to kill those other kids, right? And he got tackled by I believe it was, again, I don't know exactly what his title was, but I think he was the shop teacher. But on the side, because it was small town Minnesota, I think he was like the auxiliary policeman, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to look up the story to exactly know. But he tackled the school shooter, and he got shot in the head. Okay, he lived. It was a superficial wound, right? But nobody died because the student got tackled. And what's even funnier, why I didn't tell you in the pregame, right? What happened to the school shooter?
Now he's a senator.
No, but close. Because it was the 20th anniversary of the school shooting, the article I showed you, and it's added to the link of Beacon of Speech, right? He did not kill anybody, right? So if you don't kill anybody, you don't go to jail, right?
Well, attempted.
Exactly. So he got the attempted murder and assault for shooting.
Yeah, I am curious to hear what happened to him.
Right. So he went to jail. He went to real jail. He was 18 years old. They gave him 15 years. Well, that was 20 years ago, Ted. Where is he now? Right? They actually and I'll show you afterwards if you want to see it.
Yeah,
they contacted him, and they said, well, you were one of the first school shooters. How are things going for you? He goes, things are going great. Right? He's probably doing better than me and Ted.
I was thinking, I wasn't going to say that.
Right? But. So he shot, and again, he didn't kill anybody. He only injured one teacher.
Yeah, I guarantee you he probably has a better job than I do.
And so he went to jail for 15 years. He goes, he got his college diploma in jail. Yeah, I know, you're getting it. He got his college diploma in jail.
Does he tell people to work smarter and not harder?
No, that's coming. Oh, trust me, we're going to get there. Okay? But he said he's doing good, and he learned a trade. I guess he works on automobiles and stuff. He says he's living in the Twin Cities. I'm not going to tell you his last name, but you can look it up. It's easy. Because he's on Facebook. You would think after he tried to shoot up the school, he'd be like, oh, God, those other kids at LeSueur Henderson was going to be pissed at me. He's like, oh, no. He goes, that's the old Corey. I'm doing great now.
I should have learned a trade.
Yeah, if you would have went to jail for 15 years, you could have learned a trade in jail. But anyhow, supposedly he works on cars, and he's doing great. That's what he told the Mankato Free Press, right? Now, great is relative. Now, in Corey's thing, he'd be like, well, I got a job, that's great. So I don't know what great means. He's very vague, right? But they said he has a full-time job and he's working, and, that's old Corey, right? All I know is if I was in the school and I was a student and somebody shot the school and he was living, it doesn't matter how long he's in jail. When he gets out, I'm still pissed at him for shooting up the school. So, but the point of my story is that it had the aspects of it from all angles. The article that I made you read, right? Where's the shooter now? What happened? It was before lockdowns, it was before locked doors. How did the counselors handle it? How did the teachers handle it? They said they couldn't lock the doors. Back in the LeSueur Henderson shooting in 1997, they didn't have locked doors. They had to pry stuff up against the doors because it was before school shootings came. You know what I mean? And so it was a different time. But I'm like, well, yeah, there was a school shooting where I was at. And that's what I tried to explain. So anyhow, back to the kids today. So in Parkland, sometimes you got to take away the element of it's a school, right? And school shooter comes into Parkland. Okay, we're going to talk about this. School shooter comes in and bang, 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 bang. He's shooting kids, right? Shooting kids. And this is where me and you this is going to get very unpleasant. There was an officer. They actually had a DARE officer or a liaison from the police department, auxiliary policeman, who was there. Did you hear the story about him?
About this Parkland shooting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard all the details, but
So basically, he came up, right? He hears the shots, right? Instead of rushing into the school, he rushes away from the school across the parking lot. And they have video of this. He hides behind a concrete barrier. He calls the police department. He's like, yeah, there's a school shooting. I got the perimeter. Bye. And hangs up, right? So he's out there and he hears the shots. Right? And it's just like the video. You don't see him. He ain't rushing back in.
Officer Costanza.
Yeah, exactly. Officer Costanza, right? So Officer Costanza is hiding behind the concrete pillar, right? So he's got the perimeter, and all you're hearing is gunshots. Bang, 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 bang. Guy doesn't move, right? He's like, I got the perimeter. Up come some more deputies, right? They pull up. They hop behind their cars with their guns drawn. Again, this is on video. They don't rush into the school. They're standing out there, right? We got the perimeter. So the perimeter is sealed. There's kids dying inside the school. The officer, and again, I don't know what his title was. One guy's got the perimeter, and now they got more guys on the perimeter. But there's nobody going into school to stop the shooter. Third wave comes in. Police and EMH. I'm sorry, the third wave was EMH. EMH comes, they're like, oh my God, there's kids shot. Where are the kids? And they're like, oh, they're in the school. Well, where's the officers? Well, we're out here. And EMH is like, well, we got to get in the school. The kids are getting shot. And they're like, oh, we got to wait. We got the perimeter. And they said EMH was critical of the cops, right? Then here comes the fourth wave. Because, EMH, the cops told them not to go in. The emergency health people. I don't know if EMH is right, to EH or whatever, right? Emergency management health, whatever. Okay?
EMS?
EMS. I keep saying EMH is the Elyria Hospital. EMS. I keep saying the wrong letters. Fourth wave, finally.
I always remember EMS because they eat my shorts.
So I think the second wave was sheriff. Okay? So I think that's county. Third wave comes in, are the Parkland cops. 8 minutes later. They got their guns drawn. Okay, what's going on, sheriffs? Who's inside? They're like, no one. They're like, you gotta be kidding me. Cops storm into the building. Right? We had the Parkland cops come rushing into the building. This is the thing that upset my wife. Okay? I don't know if you know this part. Kid shoots up the school. Bang, 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 bang. Okay? There are kids laying everywhere. Right? City cops run in, and they see bodies everywhere. There's kids running out, kids screaming, kids hiding, right? And the one guy one of the first guys who charged into school, he had a news conference, and he said, imagine the worst scene imaginable in a school, then multiply it by 10. That's what we walked into, right? And so he's traumatized. He's looking for the gunman. Where's the gun? Right? Gunman's done shooting.
Yeah.
There's no more shots. Gunman, and my wife said you shouldn't say this on air, so we got to watch how we say. The gunman still doesn't want to get captured, right? He takes his gun, chucks it, puts his hand on his head. They don't know who the gunman is.
Yeah.
They're looking for a guy with the gun. Kid runs out the door with his hands on his head. He's like, there's a gunman in there. Get in there. Gunman runs out, and all of a sudden the other kids are like, no, that's the gunman. They and you've seen the pictures like on CNN. They pin him down. They, get him after he went to McDonald's, after he went to Subway. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So they pin him down after the other students are like, no, it's that guy. That guy who ran out with his hands on his head. That was the gunman. Right? So the EMS runs in. They're taking care of this kid. And the policemen, they're still looking for the gunman. And they had to arrest them out. They did not arrest them in the school. They arrested them outside the school. And they said now that they are dissecting what happened, right? They're like, the first responders, they need to get fired, okay? Now, the first guy who responded, the one who says, I'm setting up the perimeter, he goes, hold on.
So he was at the school already.
He was on the property. He heard the gunshots, but like there's a big school property. He could have been in, at the end, at the street where the crosswalk is. They said he was on the property, but not in the school.
So he was armed, right?
Yeah, he had a gun.
And is he there all the time? Or?
Yeah, he was.
Was it just one guy like that?
Yeah,
I mean,
one guy.
So there was just one armed person there,
right,
already.
So that guy,
more or less for this reason.
Yes, in case there's a school shooting, right? So he's asleep at the wheel, and they said he needs to get fired, and he goes, "Whoa, I do not need to get fired. I've been with the force for 30 years. I resign. I did nothing wrong. I set up the perimeter, and I was very vital to everything." Right? Now, people like this. Right? And we talk about it off air. There's some people who think that they're working. We used to have a guy, his name was Gary, right? And when he was boss, he'd be like, holy cow, somebody called off on a Friday night. We need to get somebody to work. And then he would call, like, Bob, right? And say, Bob, you need to work. And then Bob would work the 8 hours on Friday night. And then Gary would come in, the next week. He'd be like, oh, I did a lot of work. I had to delegate to Bob to come in on Friday. But you didn't work. He's like, but I delegated it. And it's the same thing with this guy. I held the perimeter. Why would you fire me? When they were talking about firing him, he goes, I'm going to resign. Why did he resign?
This guy's argument was, I contained it. The shooting stayed inside the school.
Right.
What? Good work.
Yeah, good job. Right? So, why did he retire before they could fire him? He gets his full pension. I know.
Now, does he have a 401k?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. He gets all of his things because he retired before they can do an investigation. He gets all of his benefits. The second wave of guys are like, don't fire us either. Oh, that's for my wife. Don't worry about that. So, that comes up, and they're like, don't fire us either. We did containment, like you said. Now they're looking what to do with those guys. Now, some of those guys, if they've been officers for a while, look for them to resign because they don't want to get fired and lose their benefit. You see what I'm saying? Now, it's not about the kids again. It's about cover your own ass, right? And the very first guy who set up the perimeter, he goes, I did what they trained me to do. Oh, that's not what they trained you to engage the gunman. He's like, oh, no. You established it's like, you know what? You're an a-hole, you're an a-hole, you're an a-hole, right? And if you look at CNN, they come out and they say, listen, you have to listen to the kids and establish gun control, right? But if you turn on like Fox News or The Blaze, you're hearing the stories of the cops, how the cops, I think it was Fox News, said the FBI knew about this kid 8 months ahead of time. And all the way around where there were failures by the adults. You see what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. If the kids want gun control, that's their right. They have free speech. They can say, we want gun control, right? But what had happened is the adults failed them on every level. And the reason I bring this up on Beacon of Speech is, do you know people like that deputy? The guy who rushed in, we got containment. We are literally doing nothing. There's a lot of adults in the world who literally do the bare minimum on their job, right? And I hate to tell those kids, and I'm sorry, but you got failed by a bunch of adults who are like, oh, no, I think I'll pass. I'm rushing into school as a gunman. Right? You know, I'm not, I didn't sign up to engage gunmen today. Right? And it goes back to what me and Ted talk about in our personal lives all the time. Right? We used to have a guy, and we were delivery drivers, right? And he would call off every time it snowed or there was an ice storm or there was some inclement weather. And he goes, I didn't sign up for that, right? Even though his job was to drive. Well, I don't want to drive in the snow. Well, nobody wants to drive in the snow, right? It's just like, if you don't want to shoot people, don't become a cop, right? Yeah. And the same thing with the guy who did the perimeter. He's like, well, then don't be a cop. Yeah. And he's still going to get his retirement because when they didn't need him to be a cop, he was like really good at making sure the door was open and making sure that he held down the magical chair that's sitting right there. Right? Those are the people who get ahead in the world, who are like, I'm going to delegate this. We'll let that. And again, I keep saying EMH, but it's EMS. I don't blame the EMS guys at all. Right? Because their job is, cops go in, EMS comes right in behind them. So I don't blame them at all. We're not going to be critical of them. Right? But they said a minimum of 5 officers who were there for a minimum of 5 minutes who did not engage. Okay? And again, they're like, oh, well, don't the policemen have a hard job? They do have a hard job. But their job is to engage. Right? I can set up the perimeter. And they said teachers were rushing into the buildings with no guns. Right? They said there's a couple of them who were heroes. They're like, I got to save my kids. Right? The guys with the guns did not rush in. The guys without the guns did rush in. What's wrong with that? And it shows what type of people in America there are. So if you break it down, and you don't want to break down a school shooting into doing your job at work or not doing your job at work, but that's basically what it was. Those kids were let down. Now, those kids are like, if you tighten the gun control law, I hate to tell you, if certain people did their jobs, you don't have to worry about gun control. And it goes back to the shooter and again, not me, but at the school, LeSueur Henderson. That guy, if he didn't tackle Corey in the bathroom, right, they would be talking about LeSueur Henderson today instead of Columbine, right? Because they were not ready. And I showed you the picture of the counselor, okay? Does she look like a woman who could take down a gunman? And that's why it's lucky that the guy found her. Or found him, not her, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, am I cheering you up with all this gun talk?
No.
Can we talk about another shooter? Me and you talked about this on the phone. In the article, I talked about the 1984 McDonald's massacre in San Diego. Okay? And I told you I would follow up on that. 1984, McDonald's guy came in to a McDonald's.
I don't, and I told you this on the phone, I don't remember that, but it is vaguely familiar.
Yeah. In 1984, he came in McDonald's, shot the place up. He was 41 years old. He was an angry male. He looked a little bit like Ted. Okay? Sorry, Ted. Okay? Angry male came in, shot up the McDonald's. Gunman gets a clean shot. Okay? Takes out the gunman. He's dead. Right? The guy didn't have a lot of money. And he didn't have a lot of money. And everybody wanted to sue somebody. Right? We're not going to talk about the victims right now, okay? We're going to pass over them. The guy who got shot, the gunman, his widow wanted to sue people, right? So she sued the company he used to work for 15 years, Babcock and Wilcox. It's on Wikipedia, okay? And they said he was poisoned by, let me see if because I want to make sure I told you this, heavy and highly poisonous metals, okay? It wasn't his fault. It was the highly poisonous metals they worked with at work, okay? The only reason I bring this up is, have you ever been to Babcock and Wilcox in your life, Ted Coley?
Yes.
You, no matter what happens for the rest of your life, according to the gunman's widow, you can sue saying you were you were exposed to the highly poisonous metals. And the widow also, not only did she sue Babcock and Wilcox, that got thrown out of court, thankfully, she sued McDonald's because it was the combination of stress, the metals, and the ingredients of McDonald's foods that pushed him over the edge to do the shooting. Now, just like we talked about the deputy who hid behind the pillar at Parkland, right? This is almost as bad. So the widow is suing everybody she can, saying it's not her husband's fault. It is McDonald's fault that there was a shooting in their place of business, right? Which is why in America you get people who are so angry because you have dolts who do things and you're just like, you're baffled, right? Just like, I'm sorry. No, I wrote it down. His name's James Huberty, right? Nothing's James Huberty's fault. It was 100% James Huberty's fault, right?
That was the shooter.
Yeah. And after James Huberty, right, at the San Diego shooting, and afterwards they're like, well, you called the cops and said he was an abusive husband. And she's like, well, he was. Well, then sue him. And I don't mean Ted. I mean James Huberty. You know, sue his estate. Well, he doesn't have any money.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to sue somebody for money.
Oh, yeah. You go where the money is.
Yeah. Which goes back to, this is what America is today. There's a school shooting, and it's not this guy's fault. It's not that guy's fault. Who can we sue? Can we sue this business? We're going to sue this gun manufacturer. We're going to sue. I'm telling you, people in Parkland, not the police chief, but some of the officers who did not go in, there's gonna be victims. Their parents are gonna sue the city of whatever city it is. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because whichever deputies did not go in the second wave, again, the people who went in were the fourth wave of people who got there. Okay? The people in charge of the second wave, they're getting sued. Okay, that's all there is to it. And
yeah, what was it? Broward County or something like that?
So they'll sue the county or whatever.
And is Parkland, is it actually the city? The city is called Parkland?
I think that's what it is. Because the school is one thing, and...
Yeah, because the school's got like some lady's name.
And the guy who had the resource officer, that's the school, look for them to get sued. Now, back to what I was saying before about Fox News. I just saw it on The Blaze just this morning before I came to do a Beacon of Speech. They had a dad, and he says, nobody will give me a platform. He goes, my child died. And he goes, you know why my child died? He said, my child died because of police neglect, and it doesn't have anything to do with guns. Guns, there's 300 million guns in here. CNN won't give me a platform. CNN is pushing the platform that they want to push, okay? And don't get me wrong, The Blaze and Fox News is pushing the platform they want to push. You know what I mean? They're not reporting the news. They're reporting certain aspects of the news that they want you to hear. Like on Cleveland.com today, there was an article from a 15-year-old girl, and again, this ties back into Ted. You've been to the Cleveland Heights schools before, right? 15-year-old girl from the Cleveland Heights school, she wrote to Cleveland.com, and she says, I'm afraid to go to school. We need gun control now, right? And it was for a 15-year-old girl, she did a really good essay, right? She goes, it's time to listen to the children. We need gun control now, right? And then you go to the comments section, and she just got savage. I felt really bad for her. I'm like, you're a 15-year-old girl. You don't do that, right? But Cleveland.com did not publish the editorial from the 15-year-old boy who owns guns and goes hunting with his uncle. You see what I'm saying? They specifically picked the editorial that fits their narrative.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't pick one side. They're like, here's one article, and then here's the other article to see both sides of the thing.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, that girl is, because we believe in free speech here, she's more than welcome to say her opinion. There's a lot of people who agree with her, and on some level, I agree with some of the stuff she says. All I'm saying is that Cleveland.com did not pick two sides of the story.
Yeah. And it's always the people who say that we need to have a debate. They're the ones who want to shut up anybody who doesn't agree with them.
Right.
And but they're the ones we need to have a dialogue. And then if somebody says something they don't like, they start basically telling them, they're insane. And
right. And that's where name calling, and that's what Rush Limbaugh always says. He goes, no, let's not do name calling. Let's have a debate, right? And the whole gun debate circles back around, just like the article says. Everything on the gun debate goes back to the Second Amendment. There are no protections in the Constitution for gambling. You don't have a right to gamble. Mm-hmm. It's not in the Constitution. You don't have a right to smoke. That's not in the Constitution. Right to bear arms is right in the Constitution. If you want to change it, you can change the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Over and over again. Me and you talk about this. Change the Constitution. There are so many guns in here, and everybody agrees there should be gun control. Then change the Constitution. It's very easy.
Yeah, if everybody agrees, it should be pretty easy to change it then.
Right. But then when you have the debate, you find out that not everybody agrees. Yeah. And the reason the Founding Fathers made it hard...
Well, when those people say everybody agrees, they just throw out the people who don't agree.
Right.
Well,
right.
They're idiots.
Crazy, they're dopes, and they're... Like you said, they're warmongers. Did you hear what happened in Seattle this week with the Confederate flag?
No.
Oh, you'll get a kick out of this. This is how idiotic things are in America this week. And you don't know this story. In Seattle, right? A very left-wing Seattle, rich neighborhood, right? Somebody took a Confederate flag and they ran it up the flagpole and ran it up in front of their house. Okay? Now, do you really know this story?
No, I don't.
Oh, you'll like this. You'll like this a lot.
I was thinking of Jeffrey.
So the neighbor looks out the window. Right? There's a window here. Oh, crap. Somebody put up a Confederate flag. They called the cops. Hello, Seattle police? Somebody put up a Confederate flag in my neighbor's yard. What do you mean it's not against the law? It should be against the law. Everybody I know thinks it's horrible and it should be banned. What do you mean it doesn't matter? I'm calling the news station.
Yeah.
Okay? Click. Stupid police, they don't do nothing. Police suck. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's right in their name, law enforcement.
Yeah. So they called...
Not things I don't like enforcement.
Yeah. So they call Channel 10 or Channel 8 or whatever it is in Seattle. And they come right down. They're like, why would you fly a giant Confederate flag in Seattle? We don't live in Nashville. We don't live in Atlanta. Right? So they drive their news van. And they said, okay, where's this house? They're like, oh, it's 2 houses down, right? They go to the house with their cameras in hand, and they're like, is this the house? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, that's a flag in Norway, right? And they're like, what? And so they knocked on the door, right? And they confirm, and they're like, oh, yeah, the Olympics are on. We came from Norway.
So now I want to look up what the Norway flag is.
Oh, well, I'll show you afterwards, right? But
is it close?
It's red and white with no stars. But there's no X. It's a cross. The Norway flag is just a cross, right? It's just red and white. Well, I guess if it's flat, it could look like a Confederate flag, right? So the news media leaves, and then the story hits the right-wing news agencies, and they ate that crap up. They're like, did you hear what happened in Seattle? And they tell the story, and they confirmed it with the TV station, and then they went to interview the people who originally called the cops, and they're like, we thought it was a Confederate flag. You missed the whole effing point. So they interviewed the people with the Norwegian flag, and they're like, no, we would never fly the Confederate flag. We're proud Norwegians. My parents came over from Norway, and they just wanted to make more money than in Norway. And they're like, oh, there's no story here. And they leave, right? But again, if they would have called and said there's a flag in Norway, the news media would never come out. And the whole premise is the media wanted to sell a story about some idiot flying the Confederate flag. Now, on my street, in my house, in North Ridgeville, okay, I have 10 flags flying in my garage, okay? None of them are a Confederate flag because idiots fly the Confederate flag, okay? I got an American flag, Canadian flag, I got a German flag. I used to have all the great hockey nations, okay? That's how I know what the Norwegian flag looks like, right? And so I got all these flags in my house, right? And my daughter bought a gay flag this week, so she wanted to know if she can put it up. I'm like, I don't care. I got flags all over this house. Put it up. Okay? I do not have a Confederate flag, but I have a bunch of other flags. Okay? My neighbor, 3 houses down, if I walk 3 houses down, there's a big, giant Confederate flag in his garage. Right? I ain't calling the cops for it because he can fly it. It's not illegal. Do I think he's an idiot? Yes, I do. Right? But that goes back to America, and it's a small microcosm of the gun argument. Right? The news media is covering what they want to cover in the school shooting. Very few people are coming up with real solutions to solve gun issues or the gun problem with shooting up schools. And like I said, I wrote that in one of the Beacon of Speech articles also. What is a real solution? Like a real world solution, not a, oh, well, don't do anything. You know what I mean? Or ban everything. What? And I'm going to tell you, what's going to happen in 50 years? I was thinking about this, okay? Guns are hard to operate, okay? And they're like, oh no, they're easy to operate. All you do is pull the trigger. Have you ever seen anybody pull a trigger for a rifle with the kickback? And, you see people shooting targets and they're shooting at targets and they can't even hit like the sheet of paper.
That would be me.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing, Ted. What happens with the next generation where you just shoot lasers? You see what I'm saying? And you're like, oh, easy shot. There's the laser. You do the laser dot, bang, you're dead. What happens when shooting becomes even easier than it is today? You still have not solved the core issues of school shootings. Right now, I think my thing had to do with policemen and reinvesting in local whatevers. Okay? I don't even remember because I wrote it all out and it's long and you don't want to talk about it. I can tell I'm already boring you. All right? But there are real solutions. Am I boring you with school shootings? Are you done? Are you like, oh, Fred's really killing the vibe?
I just wonder if Joe was here, if he would be...
You know what Joe would say? Because Joe, we love Joe, okay? If it was up to me, Joe would be here every day, but Joe does not have time, okay? Joe would be sitting there, he'd be like, those punks need to learn how to shoot. And Joe's answer would, and don't get me wrong, we love Joe. Joe's answer is like a lot of people in America, there should be more guns, not less guns. If you let kids take guns to school or let teachers have guns, you wouldn't have all these school shootings. And I got a friend on Facebook, and it was a girl. She said, when I was growing up, kids used to have gun racks in their trucks when they would drive to school, and they would have guns on school property in their vehicles. Yeah. And they're like, what changed from then to now? And it's a very valid argument. They made schools gun-free zones. Now, the guns, if there's only one guy with a gun, well, then you slanted the field where you can't stop them, right?
Yeah, so the guy who's coming into a gun-free zone, he's basically breaking the law. He doesn't care about that.
He does not care.
Because he's breaking the law anyway by killing people.
Right, exactly.
He's not going to be like, oh, crap, if I kill these people, then they're going to get me for having an illegal gun. Right.
And at its core, and I'm a horrible libertarian. I always say I'm like a cartoon libertarian because I'm not a hardcore. Hardcore libertarians say, do whatever. Do whatever you want. And you want to do shoot up heroin, just as long as it doesn't involve, like, libertarians don't believe in raping anybody, right? Because you don't want to rape that girl over there, right? But whatever you want to do to yourself, go ahead. If you want to do heroin, you want to shoot guns, you want to, a pure libertarian says, do whatever. You have the freedom in this country, do whatever. And I'm like, well, you can't shoot heroin, right? And somebody has to pay for the roads. You got to pay for taxes for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a hardcore libertarian, but their premise is if you do something and it doesn't harm that guy over there, you should be allowed to do it. Another example would be porn, right? If you're
and then you get the argument of, well, if somebody does drugs, it does end up affecting other people because then they
got to go to Al-Anon and crime, yeah. So where's your line if you're a libertarian? Hardcore libertarians are like, oh, it doesn't matter. There are no lines. You are free to do what you want as long as you don't affect that guy right there, right? Next guy over. But the whole point of my story is that I agree that you should have the freedom to do, if it's expressly written in the Constitution, it's hard to ban that. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what anybody says. People can say, Fred, I'm not a big alien conspiracy guy. Okay, I'm just not. Okay? But my greatest conspiracy is, let's say we ban all guns. Okay, say we ban all guns today, just hypothetically. I honestly, to my core, believe that the Chinese would be walking down the street today. Okay? Now, you could be like, oh, Fred, you're crazy. Okay? I read an article, must have been about 5 years ago. They said there's 1.1 billion Chinese, maybe 1.3 billion. Okay? Do you know what country in the world where they speak the country in the world where the most people speak English is America? Okay? Do you know where the second biggest country in the world that second most English speakers are?
Second most English speakers. Is it China?
Yeah. And I think they said that 150 or 200, I can't remember if it was like 100 million people, but they said they speak English. And they said that there's more people speaking English in China than are speaking English in England. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's only like 8% of the population. Well, pure numbers, you could send 500 million Chinese to die in America, and you could send a third wave of 100 million, and then they would occupy America. And it's simple math, okay? If China wanted to take over the world, they almost could. The only thing that really stops them is 1 billion Indians, right? If I was Russia, I would not be friends with China. I'd be like, listen, guys, you got to be cool, because it's just a matter of time before China says there's a whole chunk of land up north. We're going to get some new mineral rights. Okay? Now people are like, Fred,
Russia?
Fred, you're a conspiracy guy and blah, blah, blah. I just read an article today about China, and they said that they have a president, right? And they said, they're thinking of suspending the term limits on him and giving him extra terms because he's doing such a great job. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, that's not how presidency works, is it? And 1.1 billion did not vote for that guy. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's not democracy. However they come up with the president of China, even the Chinese came out this week and they're like, the Americans got to control school shootings. Well, of course the Chinese want to take away our guns.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, next generation, the thing you have to worry about is the Chinese. I'm looking in the camera. Watch out for the Chinese. Because there's no human rights. People disappear in China. And even if people disappear in Russia, Russia comes out and there's some brave journalist who goes, holy cow, a bunch of people in Russia disappeared. And then they shoot that guy, right? In China, they don't even have the journalists to go, holy cow, there's a whole bunch of... That guy doesn't exist. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why I'm sorry that we keep talking about school shootings, but it's like every day, it's like you're bombarded. And it's hard to argue with a 15-year-old kid. Because it's hard to tell a 15-year-old... Because like I said, my kid's 13, right? Mm-hmm. She's afraid to go to school, right? Well, she's not really. For our purposes, we'll say she is, but she doesn't worry about that. But how do you tell a kid, you got to prepare for school shootings, you got to do the drills, you got to be aware. As an adult, you're like, this just flat out sucks, right? And you're like, well, what is the solution to the problem? And I had to do, active shooter training, blah, blah, blah. And, for my job, I had to do active shooter training. And I'll tell you, I don't know if I told you this or not. So they said there's 3 things to do with the active shooter, right? And I'm watching the video, right? And the first thing is you see the active shooter and you like slam the door and, get away from the situation, right? Slam the door, prop up, whatever. That's thing 1, I'm sorry, this is for the bus. Okay? Let me be so specific because I don't want to compare classroom training to bus training. So we'll start from the beginning. There's 3 scenarios. They say you pull up and you're at the bus stop and there's 2 kids waiting there. Okay? And as you stop, you have a bus full of kids and you see a guy with a rifle walking up to the bus.
You floor it.
You floor it. Okay? You take off. And there's still 2 kids. Those 2 kids at the bus stop are screwed. Okay? But they said that's option 1. Okay? They said option 2 is the guy runs up and you're stunned. Right? You're like, holy cow, that guy's got a gun. He runs past the 2 kids at the bus stop, runs onto your bus. Right? Starts pointing a gun at the kids. Option 2, hit the accelerator. You tackle the gunman. Right? And they said, that's what you want, that's what you want to do, right? They said, or there's option 3. Gunman comes up, you're stunned, points a gun at the kids, runs up onto your bus, right? Points the gun at the kids. As soon as he points the gun at the kids,
you run out.
You run out! You're running through the yard screaming. Ah! They tell us in training, do not do option 3. So it's even funnier if you see the video, because you see the bus driver. I got to get up and do it. And they're like, ah! And they're running away. The kids on the bus are dead. The kids at the stop are dead. Everybody's dead except for you. You lived. Okay? So in the training...
Well, that means you win then.
I won! Yay! I won! I got away. I got option 3. But the point of my story is that they tell you, they say, don't do option 3. But everything is legal and liability. They said, if you see the gunman, flat out, don't pick him up. If you see a gun, your responsibility is to the kids on the bus. The kids off the bus, you don't even, you're sad, but they're screwed. Okay? And then the second option where you fight the gunman, they said, well, you're probably screwed, and probably some of the kids are screwed, right? But that's the option. Option 1 is the best one. The option 1 is don't let them on the bus. And you never know, because when you see somebody, they're like, oh, well, that's not Johnny. I'm not picking that dude up, right? So that's what you want to do. But you still are putting those kids on the curb. It's almost like how you're screwed in different ways. You know what I mean? Yeah, Ted's like, oh my God, dude, I can't believe we talked 45 minutes about school shootings. So, you're just thinking about the guy who ran out of the bus. Because, again, take away school shootings, take away everything else, right? You work for the city, right? You work for the city schools, whatever city school you're working in. You know me. You don't even have to answer out loud. Which one do you think I would do, 1, 2, or 3? Answer in your head. Now, the people you work with now in your building, how many people, let's say there's 10 people who work in your building, how many people of those do you think would choose option 3, honestly?
That would run off.
Just run right off the bus.
How many people?
Let's put it this way. Do you think Gary would run off the bus? Do you think Carl would run off the bus? You see what I'm saying? And so because you work with 10 people in the workplace, and we learned about this during our corporate seminars and blah, 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 1/3 of the people are not happy at their jobs, right? I don't know if that guy who hid behind the concrete pillar was happy with his job, but he's like, I ain't going in. And it's the same thing with bus drivers. Probably a third of bus drivers.
You know, he was happy with his pension.
Probably a third of bus drivers would probably run out. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to be that third. You want to be the guy who cares about your job, cares about the kids and stuff. And I would hope you don't think that I would be one of the guys who would choose option 3. I honestly don't think I would, okay? But you never know. You know, I might be like, damn, that's a good bus pension I'm getting. Hey? I'm really tempted right here.
Nah, it's just funny to picture you doing that.
Well, that's the thing. I'm watching the video
pushing kids out of the way. Get away from the door.
Yeah, like the Costanza analogy. I'm the first one out. They're screwed. You have to save yourself. Guys with pensions out first. Do you want to see what else is in? Do you want to see what else is in my outline?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of school shooting stuff.
I know.
Oh, here's another one. Let's go over here. I read an article, and it was about bizarre micronations. Excuse me, all that Pepsi's going to my head. Bizarre micronations. Okay? Now, do you know what a micronation is?
No, I know what a microbrewery is.
Technically, a micronation is something smaller than the Vatican. Okay? And they're smaller than the Vatican, and they said, we do not accept your rules. We're creating our own country. Okay? And there's a couple of them. One of them is a place called Liberland, okay, Liberland, and it's supposed to be a libertarian paradise. Are you interested in moving to Liberland? Now I'm going to tell you all the catches in a minute. Would you like to move to the libertarian paradise?
No.
Yes, you do. You want to go where there's like-minded people like me. A whole bunch of people screaming and we have the liberty to do whatever the hell we want. Right? No, you don't want to live on Liberland. Okay.
Where is that?
It's a strip of land.
Is the weather nice there?
No. It's a strip of land, 2.5 square miles between the nations of Croatia and Serbia.
Oh, boy.
And after the revolutions of Yugoslavia...
Yeah, there won't be any problems over there.
Yeah, I know. That's why we ain't moving to Liberland. What had happened is, I believe it's the Danube River, it changes courses, right? Well, after the war between Croatia and Serbia, or Yugoslavia and Croatia, or whatever the countries they are, right? There's a strip of land, and for some reason, Croatia cannot have that land, and Serbia can't have the land. And don't ask me, it's a whole bunch of Eastern European politics I don't understand, right? Well, in the year 2015, this guy, his name is Vit Jedlica, okay? He came in, he planted the flag, and he goes, you know what? This doesn't belong to either country. You know who it belongs to? It belongs to me, right? And this is my country, and I claim it, and it's called Liberland, right? What happened to poor Vit?
He probably got killed.
They came out and they arrested his ass. They said, this is not your country. This is disputed land between Croatia and Serbia. Nobody's going to live here. He's like, no. And he's in jail. He's like, that's my country. And he's writing the United Nations. He's like, please recognize my country. He goes, that's going to be the land of liberty in the middle of the old Yugoslavia. And it, like I said, it's like in a river basin, so it probably floods out every other year, right? And I'm like,
probably like Valley View.
Yeah. Well, trust me, all these micronations, there's an insane, just like Valley View. All these countries have an insane story. Like, there's one, I believe it's called Sealand, right? And I can't remember if it's in the Gulf of Mexico or if it's in the North Atlantic, right? And Sealand was an old oil platform. And you're familiar with oil platforms, right? So this rich guy comes out And he goes, you know what? How much do you want for that old abandoned oil platform? And the oil companies go, well, it's not for sale. It's an old oil platform. He's like, well, what are you going to do with it? And they're like, we're just going to let it rot. It's an old oil platform. And he goes, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Squatters' rights. Moves on to the oil platform, builds a house. Whole bunch of his friends move out, build houses on the old oil platform. They're like, we are Sealand. We have a new country. We're going to print our own money, right?
Now, this oil platform wasn't in the sea, was it?
It was either in the Gulf of Mexico or the North Atlantic. I don't remember which.
It was actually on the ocean?
Yeah, like out in the middle of nowhere.
So they're living on that platform.
Yeah, they're living on the platform, yeah. And they're like, this is our country. You can't come here unless we let you on here. And you can only get there by helicopter. And yeah, I know Ted's shaking his head. And all these other countries are like, well, we're not going to recognize you because it's an oil platform. It's basically, 10 acres or 5 acres or whatever. And they said, this is our own country, squatters' rights, and screw you, and we're going to have our own everything. And then they go to United Nations, please recognize Sealand, right? Oh, is something ringing? Oh, do I have to be quiet?
No, it's just a reminder of my appointment.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're good. So anyhow, so in Sealand, right, they got, it's still ongoing, and the oil companies like, listen, we don't know how stable this oil platform is. If you stay here, what if it disintegrates and it falls in the ocean? Next thing we know, you're going to sue us. Again, everything goes back to money, right? Please leave our oil platform. No! This is our country. Oh my God. Right. So I'm reading about this and I'm like, me and you, do you remember, it must have been about Beacon of Speech episode 12. There was a bunch of anarchists living in Netherlands or Belgium and they declared their own government-free zone where there's a bunch of anarchists living there. Yeah, so that was another one. I don't remember because I had already read it. But this was the most interesting one. There's a micronation in the United States. Can you name the micronation in the United States?
Micronation in the United States.
Because he might have one of the best quotes I ever heard, and I want to bring up on Beacon of Speech.
I don't know.
There's a country, it's called, how would you pronounce that? Molossia? Molossia. Molossia. What'd you say?
Molossia?
Molossia, okay? And it's near Dayton, Nevada. Okay, so basically this guy he bought 3 properties in the Arizona desert and said, this is my country. Okay, now, he even went and he said, hey, countries like Sealand or Liberland, we need to band together. There's a bunch of micronations across the world and they say, we need to get recognized. If we band together, we'll be like the Vatican City. We'll have our own little country. Well, you can't buy, like right here, and this is the whole point of my story. Right now, say me and you wanted to secede, and we said, we're going to start the country of Beacon of Speech. We're going to put it right in the middle of Garfield Heights. We ain't paying taxes to anybody. Screw you. Right? How long is that going to last, Ted?
Not long.
Not long. Now, this guy, he's got it figured out, and this is the scam me and you got to do. Okay? So
you're saying that I should secede from Garfield Heights?
Yes. We're going to do we're going to start our own country and secede, and then we'll do the show from our own country.
Yeah.
Okay? And we'll have everything, we'll print our own money. We'll just take Monopoly money, we'll put pictures of me and you on it.
My house and yard would be the country.
Yes, but because we might not stay Beacon of Speech here forever, wherever the final home of Beacon of Speech is, I think we're going to declare it a micronation. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because this guy, he's got it down. Okay? And he goes, oh no, this is my country. He basically takes poker chips, because of course it's Nevada. And he's got money, all the money has got pictures of him on it. And he says the rate is 75 cents to every American dollar. If you want to transfer the rates, 25 cents, in order to buy his money, 25 cents goes to him, 75 cents is like the American dollar. Right? So every dollar that you buy of his currency 1/4 goes to him, which is quite a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Again, back to the Ted Coley theory of follow the money,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how does he get away? How does he get away with having his own micronation in the United States? Ted Coley, that's my question to you.
Is it like a church or something?
Similar. He says, I have a micronation. Okay? IRS knocks on the door. Click, 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 click. That's not how you knock, 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 knock. I say click like like we're still doing guns. Right? Knock, 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 knock. Right? And they're like, yeah, this is the IRS. Please give me my taxes. Right? He answers the door. All right, IRS guys, I'm going to give you your foreign aid. Here's your money. And the IRS agent is just like, I don't care what you call it. Just give us, and just say it's $10,000. Just give us our $10,000 and leave us alone, you crazy loon. Okay, but this is not taxes. This is foreign aid. Here you go.
Yeah, because he's a different country.
Because he's a different country.
Right.
And they're like, listen, please don't do the foreign aid thing again. Just give us the tax money. And we don't care what you call it. Just give us our money. Okay, here you go. But it's foreign aid. And I'm writing it down on the bottom of my form. Foreign aid. Just so you know, you are not getting taxes from me. But here's this money.
So he's doing the IRS
So he's doing the IRS a favor. And whenever he's interviewed, he's like, I do not pay taxes to the United States of America. He goes, I have my own country. And they're like, well, yes, you do. I said, I told the IRS that's foreign aid. And they keep saying it's taxes. That's bullcrap. Okay?
So what happens if somebody attacks his country who defends?
Well, and that goes back to the gun argument. I think he has his own guns.
Oh, okay.
Right? But he registers his guns with the United States because he wants the United States. And this, as you go down the rabbit hole, as you learn about Molossia or whatever, as you go down the rabbit hole, you'll find that this guy is crazier and crazier. Okay? So he goes, I'm going to tell you about my guns. I'm even going to register my guns so you know that we're friends. Molossia and the United States are friends. We give you foreign aid, United States. We want you to do good. Here's more foreign aid. I'm going to register my guns so you know I have no intention of invading you. I'm not going to go down to Reno and invade those guys or go down to Vegas. I am a peaceful nation. Well, for the most part. And I'm like, oh, please don't
now,
say anymore.
is he the only one in this nation? Or
no, they said he has 3 properties, so I think he has either family or friends in the other properties, and he has his own flag, he has his own money, right? But everything he has an answer for.
It almost makes me think of David Koresh.
Yeah. But David Koresh was not about guns. David Koresh was all about molesting children and saying, this is my religion is molesting children. Okay? I want to have 13-year-old child brides. And he said, I will have an arsenal to protect me and my child brides, right? Basically, they stopped the pedophile. Is what they did. Okay, but so this guy is better than Koresh because he, as far as I know, he's not a pedophile. Hopefully, he's not. Okay, so anyhow, it gets better and better. So he goes, I talk to other micronations. I talk to United Nations. United Nations will not recognize me because I'm inside the United States. The damn Americans, right? And they said, and I even register my guns so they know that we're not that we're not going to attack America, that we're peaceful, right?
I hope this guy really believes this.
Well, again, he does. Supposedly he does, okay? But because he lives in the desert Southwest, you don't know if he's another guy who just wears a tin hat, okay? And he goes, but just for the record, we will not be pushed around. And he goes, we are at war with another country in the world. Okay, so here's a quiz for Ted Coley. Molossia, Malaysia, whatever you call it, okay? What country in the world are they at war with? And I can let you guess for 10 hours and you would not guess.
Wait a minute. No, give me a chance. Give me a chance.
I'm going to give you a chance because you're not going to get it.
Now, it's not this country, right?
It's not this country. Maybe we'll play 20 questions.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Who is Molossia at war with?
I'm going to say Israel.
Oh, no, but that's a good guess. Well, I'll give you more hints and as we go, okay, and see if you can guess. It is not a country in the Western Hemisphere. It's in the Eastern Hemisphere, okay?
Okay.
It is a country that no longer exists.
Country that no longer exists.
It's a country that no longer exists, and it is a country in Europe. Can you name a country that no longer exists and is in Europe?
No longer exists and is in Europe.
Yes.
Is it the... Would the Soviet Union be in Europe?
Nope. East Germany. They are at war with East Germany. And what happened is after the Berlin... I know this is funny stuff. After the Berlin Wall fell, right?
Now, my question, would the Soviet Union, was it considered to be in Europe, or is it...
Oh, well, part of it was, but not all of it.
But
They considered the Soviet Union Asia.
yeah, okay. That's,
But
but part of it was, right?
Yeah. So according to this guy's website, again, I'm going to spell it, Molossia. According to his website, they're at war with East Germany. After the Berlin Wall fell, the West Germans invaded the East Germans, and they reunified the country. Well, he is allied with Germany in case East Germany rises again. He will be an ally with the West Germans. In case the East Germans rise up. Well, that's not how it works at all, right? But this guy is talking about East Germany like they're struggling East Germans struggling for independence. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So all the way around, I'm like, oh my God. And every question that they ask this guy, he has an answer for. And he's like, well, I have solidarity with the nation of East Germany who was overrun by the West Germans. It's like, that's not what
so
happened.
now wait a minute. He's actually an ally of East Germany then.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I said it backwards. I'm an ally of West Germany, so the East Germans don't... I said it backwards. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm an ally of West Germany in case East Germany tries to run back over the West Germany.
Yeah.
Rise up against the West Germans. So he is an enemy of the East Germans. You're right. I said it backwards. So aren't we glad we sorted that out?
That's amazing. Like I said, I hope this guy literally believes these things.
Well,
I hope he's not just trying to pull some scam. I hope he really thinks that way.
Well, that's the whole thing. When he's talking about all this, and, I'm looking it up on the internet, and the internet's black and white. And I'm reading about micronations on this website. And it's real. It's like... it's like a magazine article, and they're like, micronations of the world. And they're like, are the leaders being persecuted? It's like, oh my God. These countries, all of them are smaller than the Vatican. Some of them are not much bigger than a couple of city blocks, right? And that's why I'm like, that's the direction me and you got going. We got to set up our own. And then what we'll do is we'll do micronations, and then we'll do the whole scam that this guy in Nevada is doing.
I got to tell you, I am intrigued.
Because when I was in college, I had a professor, and he used to always say, anybody can start a church, right? And he was a history professor. And he said, if you wanted to, he goes, religion in America is the biggest scam there ever was. You could have the craziest thing in the world, like we were in room 238, and we want to start our own religion. We're going to start the room 238, get high in class religion. And this is not me saying that, this is a teacher. And he's like, and religion is a scam. And he goes, we could have our own church right in here. And I'm like, you know what? This guy is onto something. He's got quite a scam. And if you follow certain religions like Mormonism or Scientology, and you look at the nuts and bolts of it, you're like, holy cow, this is real. And then you get like hardcore liberals, and they're like, well, Christianity's like witchcraft. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I get your point.
Well, what is it? Is it Scientology? Which religion was it where I heard that the guy founded it just to prove that he could found a religion?
Oh, I think it was a Scientology
Yeah.
guy. But the whole scheme of Scientology is we are going to join your cult, which is Scientology, right?
It was, and like I said, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that he did it just to prove that I could found a religion to get people to follow me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's Scientology, but I'm not sure. So I can't answer. But in Scientology, basically he says...
That's L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Yes. He basically said, join my religion and give me your money, right? And then I will help you out in your career in Hollywood, right? Excuse me. Now, one of the things you do in Scientology is you confess all the horrible thoughts you've ever had. And then you put it on tape, and then we put it in our library. And then when you try and leave Scientology, what we do is we release this stuff to the press, and then your career is over.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're like...
So you make a tape ahead of time that they blackmail you with.
Yeah. So basically it's blackmail. And they're like, oh, it's just like the Catholic Church. You confess your sins to the priest. Well, the priest doesn't turn around and go... and he doesn't have like tapes and tapes and tapes.
Wouldn't it be funny if he did, though?
Yeah. And you don't know. With some priests, you never know. Just back to the bus driver analogy. You assume that all priests are called to love their jobs, right?
Yeah.
But some priests are like, you know what? I don't care about being priests. All I care about is molesting that kid over there. You know, like the David Koresh thing, right? I studied a little bit to become a priest, okay? My grandmother used to say, I'd be a great priest. Now, you would say, I would be a horrible priest, okay? Would you say that's fair? One of the things I didn't want to do when I'm like, well, you can't have sex with women? And I'm like, that kind of sucks. That's kind of a deal breaker. I don't think I want to be a priest.
Well, you could go to other religions, though.
Well, but that's the whole thing. If you want to be a Catholic priest, that's like a deal breaker. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to not have sex with women. That kind of sucks.
Now, this was your grandmother who said?
Yeah, my grandmother said that.
And I assume she was a Catholic,
yeah,
right?
And she was Catholic.
So she wouldn't have gone for the argument of, well, can I just be like a...
Yeah, no, that would not have worked. Okay,
so,
I'm
so
like,
the only thing would be you would have to be a Catholic.
Yeah, not another religion. She goes, you would be a good Catholic priest. Well, I'm like 10 years old, right? And I'm like, okay, Grandma, right? And she's like, and Fred, you don't have to worry about the sex part because, you know, you're not having sex. Well, yeah, I'm not having sex. I'm 10, right? I'm like, what do you mean I can't get married? Oh, well, you know what? Great. I actually had Uncle Clement. He was my great uncle, and he was a priest.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, your Uncle Clement was 88, and he never got married at all." And I'm like, "Oh, jeez," you know what I mean? So that was not appealing to me. But if you're like to other people, and I'm not saying all Catholic priests are like this, but I'm saying some Catholic priests, you're like, "Well, you never get to have sex with a woman. You never get to have sex with a woman." Some Catholic priests are like, "Well, that's not a problem." You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'm not gonna name this guy, but we had a neighbor who, you know, he was married, and I think they had like 9 kids, and he became, what is it, a deacon?
Yes, because I have a friend who became a deacon also, and he...
Now, what's the difference? I should know this. What's the difference between a priest and a deacon?
If you have a church, and you don't have... Because they have a priest shortage, okay?
See, and it's weird because I bring it up, and I don't know the answer.
There's a priest shortage, right? And you have to do like 3 or 4 masses a day. You have to heal the sick. You have to be at 5 places at once. Okay? A deacon is basically an auxiliary priest.
Yeah.
You know, just like you have an auxiliary policeman, a deacon's just an auxiliary priest. He cannot stand in for certain things, but he can stand in for a lot of things. And the whole thing is, if you're a deacon and you're making, just say, $12,000 a year, okay, can you live on $12,000 a year? No. So a lot of guys become deacons when they're retired or in their 50s. That's their second job.
He was actually a policeman.
Well, yeah. After 30...
like, simultaneous.
Yeah. After 30 years, you can retire, or you can be an auxiliary one. You could be a part-time deacon. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, and then the Catholic Church are like, well, if you want to have sex with that evil woman over there, you know, the one he had 9 kids with, you can do that and you can't become a priest, but you can become a deacon and do almost everything the same as a priest, but you're not a priest. Does that make sense? So it's their scam on saying, well, you can't be a priest, but you can do all the things that a priest does except for A, B, or C. Right? Does that make sense?
It is kind of ironic because it's like, where do they think people come from?
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody was a priest, there
Ted,
would
don't get me started. Don't get me started because
you wouldn't have a church if you didn't have people.
Yeah. The Catholic Church, there used to be married priests back in the 300s, 500s. And the Catholic Church is like, do you know how much it costs for this priest to have a wife and kids? And so
once again, it's money.
It goes back to money. And I'm telling you, if the Catholic Church turned around
we got to cut our costs.
Yeah, we got cut.
I was running the numbers.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong.
I could get married, but they can't.
Yeah. There's some hardcore priests who are like, I'm married to God. And there's a nun that I know, and she's like, I'm married to God. And she honestly, I don't think she cares about sex one way or the other. Right? And don't get me wrong, there's people out there like that, right, Ted?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good calling. There's not enough of people out there to fill their ranks. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you have 1 billion followers and you have the people who don't want to have sex doesn't fill the holes, you still got to find the people who either want to have sex and, you know, they are like, well, you're going to have to suppress that. And they're like, I will learn to suppress it. Or you have horrible pedophiles who are like, well, I want to have sex with kids. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, well, he wants to have sex with kids. He's not having sex with anybody. He's not getting married.
It is kind of funny. It's like, these are the rules until we can't find anybody to follow them.
Exactly.
Rules, and then we change the rules.
And so part of the reason that these bishops 20, 30 years ago would protect the priests is because they all knew pedophiles. They all knew and they're like, oh, priest. Now, again, the only reason I say this is because I read it. It was 10 years ago. And they said 1 in 20 priests have molested children. Okay? That's a lot of effing priests. And that's part of the reason that I don't buy into the whole Catholic Church thing, because they were like, well, there's so many people. What if we got rid of all these child molesters? We're not going to have enough priests. You can't have child molesters as priests. You know what I mean? But they thought differently because each one of them, and they're like, oh, Father Smith is a child molester. We'll just send him up to Nova Scotia, right? And there's not a lot of kids in Nova Scotia. They'll just molest those kids. Because their heads weren't in the real world. Yeah. And they knew a lot of these priests were coming in and they're like, well, we don't want to get married. They're like, oh, sign here. You want to get married? Just go to the seminary. You're perfect. And then once they're a priest, they're like, oh, crap, they're doing stuff to kids. Move them to a different city. That would stop them from doing stuff with kids. But again, it goes back to, were they called to be a priest, or were they called to a profession where you could become a child molester and then the bishops would protect? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And again, do not molest kids. Do not molest kids. Okay? I'm saying that's what was happening in the Catholic Church a generation ago. And some bishops who died, they're like, well, that guy protected child molesters. I'm like, I think a lot of those bishops were protecting child molesters. And I'm not saying let me be very clear. I think they were doing it because in the little fraternity of priests, they were protecting their own, and there was a lot of them. You see what I'm saying? They shouldn't have been doing it. Absolutely. But I'm telling you what actually did happen. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went from school shootings to the priest child molesters. Isn't that much better, Ted?
So basically, the church's argument for priests not getting married was they need it. It would be a distraction. They need to be married to God.
They need to be married to God. But they said at the end of the day, they're like, you have good priests and bad priests. And they're like, at the end of the day, they're like, do you know how much it costs for a priest to have a family? And it's like, well, that should weigh into the equation. Because there's another push. Another push. I always hear about it. There's another push. Let priests get married and you'll fill the roles, right? And they're like, well, Lutherans, they have trouble getting pastors, or not. What's the Lutheran equivalent of a priest? Pastor.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, whatever. Just say it's a pastor. Let's just say it's a pastor.
Minister?
Yeah. The minister, they don't make enough money. You know what I mean? They're not making any money. The families are poor. The wives have to get jobs. So Lutherans have different problems, but you don't find congregations of Lutherans where they hide the child molesters. Mm-hmm. They're like, you're a child molester. Get the hell out of here. Right? The Lutherans were better at that. Ted's laughing.
It's not. It's just so funny because, you don't really, well, maybe you do, but it's like I don't really enjoy being cynical.
Oh, no. I'm embracing my inner cynic because, like I said, as time goes by, it seems like most decisions are not for the betterment of this guy or that guy. Whoever's in charge, they have the money, they make the rules. That's the way it's going to be. There is no greater good. And they talk about Pope, and I'm going to circle around to Pope Francis. Pope Francis is all about the greater good of the Catholics, right? And they said, you haven't heard, I said Pope Francis. Who's the new Pope? Pope Francis is the last one, wasn't it? No, Benedict was the last one. Pope Francis keeps saying he's for the greater good of all Catholics, right? And I take him at his word, right? And they said, well, why isn't he doing anything right now if he's for the greater good of all the Catholics? And he says, I am bogged down trying to reorganize the flow charts of the Catholic Church. It's like a corporation. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so horrible. And he's like, well, these guys want to run the Catholic Church like 100 years ago. These guys want married priests. And it's really hard to get it's like being the CEO of a corporate. And I'm like, oh, please don't talk about the CEO of a corporation. And so that's, when I read that he was bogged down by internal politics and internal power structures, I'm like, that is horrible.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we haven't heard from the Pope in a while.
No, and that's why. And that's the article I read. They said he's trying to fix the structure of the church. And again, well, yeah, fix the structure of the church, kick out. Now, this Pope, right now, Pope Francis says get rid of the child molesters. Okay? 50 years ago, they were like, oh, no, Bishop John's a child molester too. No.
What are you going to do, get rid of him?
Yeah, if we get rid of Priest Smith, we got to get rid of Bishop Jones. And that was the mentality of it. And like I said, that's why for the longest time I was mad at the Catholic Church. And now that they're trying to weed those people out, I'm like, good, but they should have been doing it 50 years ago. Everything the Catholic Church does is 50 to 100 years late. If you walk in the door as Catholic Church, they're so like, it's 1965. Ted,
we're going to the moon.
We're going to the moon. That big white thing. Ted,
be like Dumb and Dumber. Hey, we landed on the moon.
My dad is approaching 70, right?
Yeah.
And he went to Catholic Church, and when he was growing up, and they did Latin Mass, right? And then they started to do Mass in English, and he's like, it was so amazing. They started talking English, and I could be more engaged. And then the hardcore Catholics are like, we prefer the Latin Mass. Like, why would you prefer the Mass where you don't know one goddamn thing they're saying?
That's probably why.
Yeah. No, we like the beauty of the language.
We're off the hook if we never hear anything.
Yeah, that's a plausible deniability. So we have to decide whether we want to start our own religion or if we want to start our own micronation. So, and there no school shootings are allowed in our micronation. Well, we'll make it a law so it doesn't happen because whenever that happens. Yeah. I was on a libertarian website, and I know we don't want to talk about school shootings much. We'll wrap it up here. But they said murder is already against the law, right? Going out and murdering that guy is against the law. And going out and mass murders, just like back to the McDonald's analogy, the 1984 McDonald's massacre, that guy, it was against the law to kill people. Okay? All these school shootings where you go out and kill people, it's already against the law, just like you said earlier in the episode.
Yeah, and they still do it. It doesn't.
And they
stop.
still do it. It don't matter.
So you're saying you're going to make all these laws for you can't have this gun or that gun. It's like,
oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to say don't kill anybody, and that'll work. Because my nation will be different than that other nation. I was being sarcastic. Ted. I'm not going to joke. Ted's done with me. Ted's like, I can't believe we talked for an hour about school shootings. Do you want to do a song of the day?
Do I want to do a song of the day?
You got any shooting songs? I Shot the Sheriff by Eric Clapton or something?
Actually, there was one that I've been thinking about for a while. Message of Love by the Pretenders.
Message of Love by
Do you know that song?
Yes.
It's a good song, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like any songs about love.
Yeah, but this is...
No, I know.
But you do know the song,
yeah,
right?
I know. That's always being a smart ass. Message of Love by the Pretenders. This is episode number 79. 78 does not exist. I'm probably going to do an article about
it's like the 13th floor on an elevator.
Yeah. So hopefully we are back on schedule. Next week, we might have a special episode. Me and Ted.
I thought you were going to say a special guest.
Oh, no. Well, we might have... Ted, eventually I want to have guests. What we'll do is we'll kick me or you off the screen. I think I want to keep the two-person thing. Okay, put you off screen. We'll have a guest come up, and you can yell at them or throw things at them, and that's fine. But yeah, that's the end game, is we want to have guests on Beacon of Speech. I want Nurse Dan. I want Cliff, the comic book guy. And you know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I want Joe. I want Joe here. Even if he comes in for 5 minutes and say everything you does suck. Right? Or if Joe even comes in. Joe, I'm telling you right now. Okay? Me and you are going to talk about our guns or lack thereof. Okay? I'm going to call Joe right now. I say, Joe, Beacon of Speech 80, please bring your biggest gun you have.
Oh, wow.
And you know what Joe would do? Joe would be like, I'll bring it to this one. No, Joe, bring it to the next one. He'll bring it in. He'll show that my name is Joe Kaufman, and this gun is called Betsy. And you know what I shot with this? I shot a deer with it. And then after it was dead, I shot the babies that came out of it. He goes, and that's how Joe is. Would you say that's probably fair?
I don't really know. Because I don't think I ever heard him really talk that much about.
The only reason I know this is there was a